I'm Diane with Batik. One of the things that I really love making are patchwork tops. That's the topic of our discussion today, is how do we go about piecing, taking a piece of our quilting world and putting it into our garment world. And so what I want to take you through are the steps of working with our Batik Jersey Knit and creating a top that uses traditional tumblers and strips. So that's what we're going to do. The first thing I did was try to figure out what pattern I really liked as a t-shirt pattern, and I just wanted to find a standard pattern that fits my style and something that would be easy to work with the Jersey Knit. So I'm going to give you a couple of ideas. I actually used, for this particular garment, I used the Lark T pattern, and I used the boat neck with the 3/4 length sleeve. Very basic, simple pattern. We just added a little flair to it. The other patterns that we do have on our website that are perfect for this type of a project are the McCall's 6964, which again is a simple t-shirt pattern, or this other one, this Batik 6690, which is a very popular pattern, and it has a different sleeve style to it. It's more of a raglan sleeve to it, but same concept. Any t-shirt pattern that you have at home or something that you'd like to try, that's what you find first. So the steps in working with our Jersey Knit are kind of interesting. If you've never worked with a Jersey Knit, I want to kind of go through our knit. Here's one piece of fabric, and it's actually cut down. Our Jersey Knit is 72 inches wide, and so there's a lot to work with when you have a yard of fabric even. But one thing to always look for is the selvage. The selvage edge is going to curl away from the front of the fabric. And if you have a cut edge, the cut edge is going to actually curl towards the front of the fabric. And this is a very nice knit. It stretches one way. It doesn't have, athletic wear stretch. It is 100% cotton. And so it should be pre-washed before you cut anything out, and just know where your grain line is at all times when you're working with Jersey Knit, just like you would if you were working with a woven fabric, okay? The other thing that I do use is I do use a stretch needle. I have a serger, so I do use a serger when I'm finishing any of my seams, but you can use your stretch stitch on a traditional sewing machine as well and accomplish exactly everything that I'm going to be showing you here. So let's get started with the project. Now, the one thing besides your pattern is you're going to need our patchwork pack. And our patchwork pack comes with the fabric for the top, the sleeves, and the back, as well as all the various knit fabrics that we use in the patchwork. And the patchwork shades, I basically am going to show you using the patchwork that we have in the t-shirt right here. So there's 6 different fabrics here, and we cut them 13 inches wide and just enough so that you can manage the patchwork here. And there's enough fabric in your patchwork pack to make size 8 all the way up to a 24 or a 26. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough fabric. So you might have extra or you might have just enough. It just depends on your body style and what you're trying to accomplish. So what we're going to do first with our patchwork pack, after you wash the fabric, make sure you wash it, because we don't want to have you having a shrunken top after all this is made, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our fabric, and I'm going to show you here. Each one of these, they do stretch and curl, or I should say they don't stretch, they curl after you've washed them. So that's the one thing about it. You're going to have to, you may have to iron it a little bit, not too much, but I actually, when I lay the fabric out on my table and I'm going to cut it, I use masking tape to hold it in place so that it's flat, just like it were a woven. And it makes it so much easier to work with your rulers and templates and anything that you're going to use to cut out of the knit. Now, in the patchwork guide, we provide, let me get it here for you, the tumbler. And it's a template tumbler. It comes on cardstock so that you can cut it out and use it right away. You don't have to go to a copy machine or figure out how you're going to get a harder surface to work with. So make sure that you cut that out, which I have here. And the tumbler that I use, now you don't have to use these exact sizes or this exact style, but what I did is mine is 5 inches top to bottom. So the first thing I do on my knit is I actually, and do this for every single fabric that you're going to use in your top, is I cut a 5-inch strip. Let me do that here for you. Across the fabric. And set that aside. Now, since you've cut your fabric once, the fabric will actually lay flat on your cutting table. So you can just remove the piece of fabric that's left with the tape on it. Reuse your tape every time you do this. Then we take our template, and I actually have a really small ruler that I use. I lay it on top of the template and just follow the edge to cut out your tumbler. Take your template, flip it over, matching edges, and cut. With the 6 different fabrics that we've included in the pack, you basically need anywhere from 4 to 5 tumblers of each fabric. I also made a separator here. I have 2 different strips that I really wanted to kind of change up the design of the top. And so I did cut, same way that I did with the 5-inch strip, I cut a 2.5-inch strip and I cut a 3-inch strip all the way across the fabric that's in the pack. Now, that's how you cut these. Let me set that aside. And I'm going to quickly show you, if you're not a quilter, how to stitch the 2 tumblers together just to make this. This one starts facing this way, and then we kind of exchange them, because what we're trying to do is stitch the seams together in a patchworky fashion before we do anything more. So we need to find the front, the right side of our fabric on both pieces. And then what you're going to do is lay them against each other like that. And using your traditional sewing machine or your serger, you're going to stitch along that edge. I've done that here so that we have a sample of that. And it's stitched along that edge right there so that you end up, when you open it up, with your seam. Okay? So once you have all of your pieces cut out, sew them together in a nice arrangement so that you have the fabric that makes up the top. Now, I know I'm kind of going a little bit fast, but let me show you what it looks like when it's all sewn together. Here is the fabric as it's pieced together before you do anything with it. Nothing is even on the edges. Because it's a tumbler, it's going to have different shapes on the sides, okay? And on the back side, it's going to look something similar to this, where each of the tumblers have been sewn together. I serged mine, and then I also pressed it all one way, just like I would if I was doing a patchwork quilt. Okay, so this will lay flat on the back side and against your skin. So I'm going to lay this out here, just like that. Now, the next thing to do is to lay out your pattern piece. I took a copy, well, I shouldn't say copy. I actually hand drew a template from the Lark pattern to show you how to lay this out. A couple things to consider when you're doing this is that I wanted to make sure, first and foremost, that I had enough fabric in my top. So I made sure that I had pieced together about 27 inches worth of fabric. And that's exactly what we have here. I left the largest piece to be around my neck for the collar to give it a little bit of separation, because I didn't want the patchwork all the way up to my neck or the collar, and I wanted to give it a little bit more of an ease down here around the sleeve. So this piece up here is approximately 10-11 inches, whereas everything else then is the pieced portion of the garment. So down here, what we're going to do is lay this piece out here. This is going to be your center front fold that you would have on the garment itself. Now, know where the center is of your fabric as well. This is the tumbler that we used in the middle here. So I am just going to lay the center fold of this garment right on this fabric. And I really just kind of do an approximation when I look at the tumbler to make sure I'm in the middle of that tumbler all the way across. And then I'll use my rotary cutter or scissors to cut it out. Then I want to flip it over and do the same thing for the other half of the front of the garment. One of the options that I did try was to fold this in half like you would if you were working on any single fabric for the front fold of your garment. I didn't like it so much simply because there's too much bulk with each one of the pieced sections. So leave it open, fold your pattern over to the other side, and cut out the front of the garment. It just seems to be the easiest way to make sure that it's straight. Okay, so once you do that, you're basically done making the patchwork front for the garment. It's really, really simple. So the rest of the project, then you go back to your pattern, and in my case it was the lark tee, and put your collar on, sew the back, sew the sleeves, hem it, and you end up with a shirt that has its own unique style for yourself. It's really very fun, and I can't wait for you to try this. The other top that I want to show you to give you an idea of a different patchwork is right back here. This top, more fall shades basically, is rectangles. So I took, and I think they measured about, I think it was 5.5 by 6.5, something like that, to give it more of a rectangle shape. And I worked this design all the way up into the collar and the sleeves. And then the back itself is simply a one piece of fabric. So each patchwork pack for this design, which is called the rectangle, comes with all of the various shades of fabric and the back to make the top. And then you always have the option of getting a pattern with it. It can be the lark, and it can be all the other fabric or patterns that I introduced today as well. So the guide, the fabric, and the pattern. And you have a very, very fun top for this fall. And we hope you enjoy.